Hi there, Rene Cusson, Music Chair with the BC Pipers Association here, to talk to you right now about the D throw. Many people have different opinions about how a D throw should be played. It's not my job to tell you that people who make light D throws are wimps and that those who make heavy D throws have some substance to them. But there are people who hold opinions like that out there. Can you believe it? Anyway, let's look at the different types of D throws, how they are made well, and you can take it from there. When I began playing, the first movement that I was shown as a D throw, and it's the way many people are still taught today, and sometimes it's the way they go through their playing careers with their D throw, and it was basically to go down to low G, come up to D, tap the D finger down and up. So that was a light D throw. That is a type of light D throw. I think we can take it and refine that more, but you know, beauty is in the ear of the beholder, and people often have opinions too on how they like their D throw to sound. So my very first tune when I began piping was The Brown-Haired Maiden. So of course I needed to have that D throw ready. So that was basically what I learned. It was the Logan's Tudor version of the tune. And it wasn't until I was 15 years old, so that was basically going from age 7 or 8 to 15, when I had my first epiphany regarding D throws. And it was pointed out to me that you could take a D throw and you wanted some spark at the beginning of it. And that was achieved by, rather than just letting that D finger down and back up, by making it a D grace note. In other words, getting the snap into the D throw. So low G, D grace note on C, D. If I contrast the two ways of playing a light D throw, hopefully you'll hear a slight difference. Just a little bit lighter on the one where we tap it, as opposed to snapping the finger with a grace note and getting it up there. So for several years, after 15 years of age, I worked at playing some people would call it a medium D throw, but it's the D throw with a grace note in it. And when we started getting into playing as a pipe band, that became quite significant too, because when people had to work at making that D throw and snapping that grace note in there at just the right spot, that allowed us to have players play more accurately together than if we had the other form of light D throw, for example, where everybody's finger might be tapping slightly differently. And not only that, that movement would be less distinct when you think about it for an entire pipe band to make. Whereas when we get a grace note going, it can make a huge difference. So, great deal of snap into that. And where does the heavy D throw fit in? Well, the heavy D throw is in fact more of a grip type movement. It's based on that because what we have in fact when we break down the movement is we have a grip to C, so we have a grip to C and then immediately up to D is essentially what we have. And if we look at the way the music was written in the old days, when people wanted a heavy D throw played. It was written in full. So there was that expectation that that would be the movement that was played. And it's got a lovely ripple to it. Is it nicer than the lighter D throw that we were playing? Not necessarily. It's actually a bit of a different movement. We use it in the same places and in the same way in a tune. There we have it in the Brown-Haired Maiden. Do I prefer one to the other? Not necessarily. Sometimes it would be different on a given day. You know, if I'm getting up to do a recital, maybe I'm going to pop out some light D throws today. Maybe on another day I would choose the heavy. Someone once said to me, think of the tune The Cameronian Rant. So for those of you who know it, this heavy-duty, masterful strathspey that professionals and top bands love to play. Such a great piece of music. Sounds great and it's fun to play. A musical suggestion that was given to me was, why would we not put the heavy throw into the light-handed parts, the ones with a lot of top hand, and perhaps put the light D throw into the ones that are heavy on the grips already. And I have gotten up at recitals and I've played the tune that way, and people have found it quite fascinating. From a musical point of view, that makes a lot of sense. But we have a lot of interesting attitudes in and around competitive piping that have people say, oh, you've got to be consistent through a performance. Well, if someone came and varied those D throws for me and they were consistent within the part, I would be good with that. But it makes one realize that sometimes we perhaps don't spend enough time thinking about the musicality of what we're doing and how things could be even more interesting, providing more variety, more contrast, more depth, and some of those things that are also important to making good music. Anyway, those are a few thoughts on the D throw, and as with any other movement, you have no excuse not to have really good ones. You work at them slowly to get them going and gradually build up the speed with total control of your fingers. Conversely, if you want to work on your heavy throw, so that is how I would work on it. I would break it down that way. I know earlier I showed you playing the grip to C, which is a component of that. But if you play a grip to C and then follow it with D, you won't necessarily have quite that same ripple that you get from making sure that all the grace notes within the movement itself are of equal duration. And that is a movement that we can tighten up, and sometimes, musically speaking, we hear people who can play D throws, crack them off really quickly. That's not always good. In order for them to sound truly beautiful, there needs to be enough openness for the movement to be able to breathe, especially with that heavy D throw where we have all the grace notes within it. So we could vary the amount that we keep that D throw open. And as individual players, we should be listening to ourselves, maybe recording ourselves, soliciting feedback about our playing from friends, or if we have a teacher, from our teacher, and find out what they think sounds good in our playing. Anyway, explore your D throw, have fun with it, come up playing a great D throw.